And we will be recording through the presentation portion, and then the discussion portion of the call will be unrecorded. So it will be free to ask all of your burning Marketo questions, and will not be recorded for anyone in the community to hear any of the problems that you may be having. So welcome everyone to our very first VMUG for North America. And I'm very excited to have everyone on the call, and also to have Sydney and Jackie to be leading this moving forward. So they will be our co-leaders. And let me go ahead and share my screen, and we can start going through the agenda for the call today. Let me know if everyone can see my screen.
It's looking good.
Cool. Trying to get into presentation mode here. There we go. All right, and I am Taylor Enfinger, so I don't think I've introduced myself yet, but I am the virtual MUG ambassador on the Champion Leadership Committee, and I'm a 3-time champ and have been working in Marketo now for 6 years. That sounds crazy, it's been that long, but am very excited to be, working alongside such experts that we have on the call today, and we've got a panel of speakers that I'll introduce momentarily. So just wanted to go through an agenda really quickly. So as I mentioned, we have Jackie and Sydney that will be leading us. And then we will have go through some of the Marketo announcements coming up. And also we'll cover a little bit on the upcoming Marketo Summit and some of the virtual and in-person MUG meetings coming up. And then Sydney is going to walk us through sales and marketing alignment. And our next meeting is still TBD. I know this is our pilot meeting, so more to come on the next virtual MUG meeting. But really quickly, wanted to go through, and Michael, I told you this from your manufacturing MUG, I totally stole this because I think it's so great. But we want to make this be a safe space, so feel free to unmute yourself at any time to ask questions, go in the chat and ask questions. Jackie's going to be answering any questions that come in through the chat, so we can pause throughout the presentation, or if you'd like to wait till the end till the panelists have some time to speak, you can ask your questions then. We want this to be very collaborative. I know it's difficult to be collaborative on a webinar sometimes, but feel free to go on video or not if you don't want to be on video. We'll all be on video, so hopefully you get to know our faces. And we want this to be a fun, enjoyable session, and also to be professional. We want everyone to have their inputs and to give their professional opinion, advice, anything they want to share, Marketo related, marketing related, sales related. So feel free to be as interactive as possible. And now I'd like to take a second and have Jackie and Sydney introduce themselves. So Jackie, if you want to give a quick intro.
I'm Jackie Potts. I work for Lycor Biosciences, and along with being a Marketo champion, I've been using Marketo since 2010, so started using it pretty early on. And I'm excited for the virtual MUG. I work remotely in Nebraska, so excited to connect with everyone this way.
I'm Sydney Mulligan. I'm a marketing technology consultant at Atumos. We're a marketing technology consulting company primarily focused in Marketo. And I'm also a 3-time Marketo champion and Marketo certified solutions architect. I live in New York City, so we obviously do have a MUG here, but I'm really excited to be part of the North America Virtual MUG and to meet some new faces all across country.
Cool. Thank you, ladies. All right. And now, so the first portion of our meeting, Sydney is going to go through sales and marketing alignment, as I mentioned earlier. And then the last part of the call, we're going to have Michael, Emily, and Julie be our panelists. And so any questions you may have, I'm also going to be having some pre-canned questions in case we don't get much interaction. But would like for the 3 of you to introduce yourselves. So Michael, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to do that. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this first virtual MUG. I've been a virtual MUG leader now for about a year and a half, I guess, now. And my name is Michael Tucker. I'm a marketing technology consultant with a conversion store. I work primarily in Marketo as well, as with other technologies. And so our, like I said, I run the manufacturing virtual user group, and glad to see all these different people from around the country and around the continent joining in here, and looking forward to working and joining the chat with all of you. Our next session for manufacturing, just to plug at, is going to be on January 24th, and it'll be on 10 ways to improve your database quality. So that's our next user group there.
Cool, thanks, Michael. And Emily?
Sure. My name is Emily Thornton, and I'm a technology consultant at Annuitas with Taylor. I'm based in Atlanta, and I've been using Marketo for about 8 years now. I'm a Marketo champion, solutions architect, and I'm involved in the Atlanta Marketo user group.
Cool, thanks, Emily. And Julie, or Jules, I should say.
You can call me either, it's fine. So hi, I'm Juli James, or Juli James. I am an assistant professor in marketing at St Edward's University. However, I've also used Marketo for around about 5 or 6 years, 4 times champion, hopefully to be 5th time when we find out this week. I also have a freelance consultancy firm where I actually do Marketo consultancy, as well as teaching Marketo and other digital kind of tools and technologies.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. And then just a couple of announcements. I'm sure everyone on the call now has heard that Adobe acquired Marketo. If you haven't, there's some more information here with a link to the acquisition and just to learn a little bit more about that. And then a quick update on the Marketing Nation Summit. So as you've probably heard by now, there will no longer be the summit that was going to happen in October. Instead, they are combining with the Adobe Summit. So it's going to happen all in one, with Marketo getting some love on all 3 of the, or I should say all 4 of the days, with 1 day fully dedicated to Marketo sessions. So the dates as of now are 24th through the 28th, and you can go ahead and purchase your ticket. You can go ahead and register for a hotel room. So again, links below if you need any more information. It will be in Vegas this year and not San Francisco. So hoping to see everyone on the call there, and looking forward to networking with some of you. So excited about this. And then some of the upcoming MUG meetings in your area. I reached out to a couple of people at Marketo to get the upcoming list. So there may be more that are in the community that you see in the upcoming weeks, but these are the MUG meetings as of now. So January 17th, there's going to be a MUG meeting in Raleigh. 22nd, we have one in Helsinki and then in Portland. And then the 23rd, there's the MUG meeting in San Francisco. And the 24th, we'll have the Chicago MUG meeting. And also, as Michael mentioned, the manufacturing virtual MUG, and then the MUG in Dallas, Texas.
So I'll be at the Portland MUG and the San Francisco MUG next week. So if you are on the call and in those cities, would love to meet you in real life.
Yeah, so we, obviously for anyone that is unable to attend a physical MUG, this is an area where you are more than welcome to continue coming to the virtual MUGs. But always recommend going to the in-person MUGs if you have the opportunity. It's always great to see people face-to-face and to do some networking. So if you're near any of the cities, I would highly recommend going, because they do add a lot of value to see people face-to-face as well. So, and now I'm going to jump into the main meat of the presentation, which is Sydney to present on marketing and sales alignment. So Sydney, I'll let you take over controls if you want to share your deck, and you can kick us off.
All right, that sounds good. Let me take over presenter. Let me just make sure I'm sharing the right desktop. Too many monitors. All right, are you guys seeing my screen?
Looks good.
Are you seeing a PowerPoint, or are you seeing my desktop?
I'm seeing your desktop.
All right.
Door number 4.
I just have to tell you how much I love your glasses, by the way.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. They're from some random online glasses retailer.
That's a long
We
one.
never had success with those.
Oh, I highly recommend. All right, let me see if I can just present this on the other desktop. How about that?
We can see it now.
Yeah,
All right.
Yay.
Can you still see it?
It's the little wins.
Okay, great. All right, so we're going to talk about marketing and sales alignment today, and I want this to be very conversational. So I know that it's a little awkward because this is a virtual meeting and it's our first one, but please feel very comfortable taking yourself off mute. Please feel free to interrupt me. I'm going to stop and ask for questions a couple of times or ask for input, and it's just going to be an awkward silence if you don't say anything. So remember that it will be more awkward for you to not say anything than it will be for you to say something on a virtual call. And of course, would love input from our panelists at any point. This is a fun topic, or something that is maybe a little less fun that we've tried to make into more of a fun topic, using the movie Mean Girls as inspiration. So I hope that you are familiar with the movie Mean Girls, where a lot of these jokes are not going to be very funny, but the content will still be very fun and meaningful. So this is how to make your sales team think you are gruel, which is, of course, when you mean to say cool and then you started to say great, and it's very awkward. I'm Sydney. We already talked about me, but this is how you can get in touch with me. Big Mean Girls fan. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to answer questions on the call, but if you think of something later or have something you want to go into more detail on, feel free to reach out. Okay, who here has ever felt personally victimized by their sales team? I'm imagining all of you raising your hand, just like this group of people. You've been called out or blamed for something that was not necessarily marketing's fault, or definitely become a victim of your sales team instead of feeling supported by your sales team. Anyone have any examples they want to share of a time when you felt victimized by your sales team?
I have one. Every time they don't get enough leads, or they get too many leads, or the leads aren't good enough.
Yep. It's never the right quantity, never the right quality, never at the right time.
Yeah, and it's always marketing should be doing that. Why isn't Marketo doing that? That's automation. It should be doing that for you because it's automatic.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that's always a fun one.
That's always a fun one. I'm sure we've all heard that. This is a safe space. No one's going to tattle on you.
I always enjoy when they have marketing requests, because apparently we do nothing for them ever. So we build a whole program for them and put together a beautiful campaign, and they don't do anything on their end. And all of a sudden you look and there's no registrants. There's no one's even clicked on, viewed on the webpage or anything. And you're like, really, guys, come on.
Just because you decided this was really important does not mean that it was actually really important or really worth marketing's time and going to show a lot of value for the business, which is, of course, what we ultimately all want to do. Let's see if we can get one more from the peanut gallery.
I think my favorite is whenever a sales rep wants credit for something they say they sourced, but they have all of their information on an Excel spreadsheet and never put it into Salesforce or whatever tool they're using.
That's a great one. Yeah, when you have sales reps that refuse to work in the system or follow process, that can make it really difficult for all parties involved, especially your business. Well, that's great. So what we're going to do today is create ourselves a little burn book. If you're not familiar with the burn book, it's where we write down all of our sad complaints about sales, and we're also going to talk about some things that you can do to address those. I know that we've covered a couple. I have a couple more, and at any point along the way, if anyone has encountered one of these and has a different solution that you've come up with or an example of how this has gone for you, then please feel free to jump in and share it. So the first one, I think this is touches on what Jules mentioned. She never follows up on my MQLs. You pass over all these leads. Marketing is often really held to how many MQLs you're able to generate. That's what marketing's performance is measured on. You pass over all of these MQLs and then they don't get followed up on. So one thing you can do is, first of all, create agreed upon deadlines for how and when your MQLs will be followed up with and clearly communicate them. Maybe it's as simple as a miscommunication between sales and marketing, that marketing's expectation is that an MQL will be worked, immediately, within an hour, within a couple hours, and sales' expectation is, I have all these other opportunities that I'm working, other things that I'm doing. It's not important to me to follow up on your MQLs that quickly. So make sure that you align with your sales leadership, create an agreed upon deadline. What I would consider to be a best practice is a 24-hour follow-up time. You may have a tighter timeline depending on the type of MQL, maybe just a general MQL or an event MQL is a 24-hour follow-up, but something like a hand-raised MQL, a hot lead that's requesting contact has to be followed up on within an hour. And there are things you can do in Marketo to try to enforce those. Obviously, you can create SLA stages in your revenue modeler to start monitoring when there are infractions. But one thing that I found to be really helpful is to send escalating alerts. That kind of puts the fear of God in your sales team a little bit when your MQLs are not followed up on. So after you've established what your SLA is, all of our MQLs have to be followed up on within 24 hours, then start checking. You can build an automated process in Marketo to start checking, has your MQL been followed up on? Has it been moved out of the MQL stage? Has the lead status been changed? Whatever your proxy is to indicate that the lead is being worked. After 24 hours, if that hasn't happened, then you can send a secondary alert. There are a couple of ways I've seen this done. One is to send a second alert to the sales rep themselves and say, hey, by the way, you're now in an SLA infraction. You need to get to this. Or you can go right ahead and copy their manager on that. After 48 hours, you can copy their director. After 72 hours, you can even go as high up as copying the VP. And if it gets to that level, then usually you have a real problem. So that's one route to go. I've built this program for global sales offices using FlowBoost as a webhook in Marketo. We've built FlowBoost to check the current time zone in each of those offices, as well as check an array of blackout dates. So we're never, penalizing sales for not following up on a lead when it was a holiday, or not following up on a lead when it was a weekend, and making sure that we're only sending those scary infraction alerts when it was in fact an infraction. So that's one thing you can do. The other is if you're constantly passing over MQLs and seeing that they're never being followed up on, or seeing that they're being followed up on and they're just automatically going to the trash or being recycled, make sure that you're capturing as much data as you can on that. I know it can be difficult to enforce something like a recycled reason field. So I like to keep that as simple as possible. If you make too many fields or too much data that has to be populated, they'll just put junk in it or ignore it. But just make it a simple pick list required field when someone's lead status changes to recycle or nurture, whatever your proxy for a sales working a lead and not making progress with it is, that they have a requirement to indicate why that is. Either, it's not the right time, let's send them back to nurture, maybe they'll come back as an MQL eventually, or maybe this is actually not someone we're able to sell to, let's go ahead and move them to disqualified so we're not passing that back to sales and wasting their time anymore. Anyone have any experiences with something like that? Yeah.
Sydney, I actually have a question for our panel.
Sure.
Around building SLAs and then also the lead alerts. From the panel's point of view, would you rather those be built in your Salesforce or Dynamics instance, or do you prefer those to be built out of Marketo? And if so, what's your preference and why?
I can weigh in on that. We typically build those within Salesforce. Of course, that if you have a good Salesforce developer, Salesforce admin, and a good relationship with those people, that's kind of critical. But there's a lot you can do with time-based workflows in Salesforce and field updates to track the SLAs, not just in the alerts, but track that in fields. So you can create dashboards and things to give your sales team, your sales managers, visibility into the status of the SLAs.
Oh, yeah, that's certainly a different way to do that too.
I think it also depends on the use case. So I've done it both ways. In Marketo, if you don't have the admin or the capability to do it in Salesforce, because in Marketo they're fairly easy to build. Obviously you've got the time frames, you've got your wait steps, all that kind of stuff, and you can send the tasks. Or if you have the capability and you have the knowledge to do it in Salesforce, do it that way as well. Because at the end of the day, it's all going to go to the salesperson in the same way. They're going to get an alert or they're going to get an email. They're going to see something in front of them. That's the most important thing. If you have a sales team that is 500 strong, then you might want to do it in Salesforce because it might be a little bit easier to manage. If you have a sales team of 3 people, Marketo might be a little bit easier to manage because you don't have to go into as depth with the workflows, etc.
Yeah, I've actually built this for really large sales teams out of Marketo too. I think that because if you have 500 sales reps, they're each getting 50 MQLs a day and not following up on any of them, that is going to be a high volume of alerts, but it is something that Marketo is able to technically handle. It's a big problem with your sales team.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's a culture issue more than
That's probably more indicative that they're working out of Excel spreadsheets and not Salesforce, and that they're actually just doing nothing all day.
Yeah. So I find that kind of interesting, actually. From my background, I come from a sales background for the first 10 or 15 years, I guess, of my career, and
you're a trader. Trader for both sides.
Yeah, I've always been the liaison person kind of between the two, so it's been interesting to kind of see, bridging that gap between the two of them. And I would say probably your point about escalating the alerts to up the sales organization is a pretty big point, but probably more so culturally to kind of make sure that the sales reps have an understanding that at the end of my week, I'm going to have a review with my manager to be able to see a roll-up of what's in my sales pipeline, and all of my scoring data is going to be in that pipeline as well too. So if I'm not following up with a lead, if it's falling further down in my review, my manager is going to be able to see that right away, and is going to be able to see all of the marketing engagement data for all of those leads too. So if I have a lead with a high score that I haven't followed up on, I've got some pretty big issues to be able to address there, and that everybody is going to be able to see that higher up the organization means a lot for me as a sales executive. And at the end of the day, you can have certain values to be able to show you the actual expected value of that sales lead, and that gives you a really good sense as a salesperson of exactly how much money you're leaving on the table by not following up here. So it's negative reinforcement, but then it's also positive reinforcement too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sales wants to make sales, right? So we're trying to enable sales to make sales. It's more a matter of getting on the same page about the best way to do that. And if sales isn't following up with your leads because they feel like you're constantly sending them garbage, then that could be a legitimate concern that you need to address as a marketing organization. Like, what is your MQL criteria? Does it need to be tightened up? Are you overwhelming sales with leads that they just don't have the bandwidth to follow up on because you're dumping, hundreds of leads a day on the same person in the same territory? And most of them are going to end up recycled. So I think after you have a good SLA in place for your MQLs themselves and making sure that the good ones are being followed up on, it's time to start looking at down funnel conversion metrics and seeing how many of my MQLs are converting to an opportunity versus how many of them are just being recycled, and let's tighten that up and try to increase the number that are being converted as much as possible. Cool. Anything else? Anyone have anything they want to add or questions before we move on to the next point? Not just from the panel, from the audience as well. All right, I think we're good. Okay, here's one that I've definitely gotten before. They're always complaining about the campaigns that I run. So if you have a sales organization where sales feels a lot of ownership over the communication with the leads that they're working, they don't want marketing touching them. They really don't want marketing to anyone. I've definitely heard this complaint before. Just leave them alone and let me email them when I feel like they're ready to be emailed. So there are a couple of things that you can do to help with this. One is to expose marketing collateral to sales. So if sales is really isolated from what you're actually sending out to people, that can certainly make them feel, distrustful of marketing or distrustful of the actual collateral that's being sent out. One complaint that I've gotten before is, if they have a conversation with a prospect and the prospect references a piece of marketing collateral that they had recently read from your company and sales has never seen it, doesn't know what they're talking about, it makes them look dumb. It makes them look like they don't know about the company that they actually work at. So you should absolutely expose marketing collateral to sales, either through, when you're just starting this out and not asking for a tech investment in it, just having like a centralized shared folder where you're putting PDFs of all the assets. That can be difficult because you may not necessarily want to give that away for free and have sales have the ability to share those for free all the time, but at least a centralized repository where they can consume the content themselves. Or you can get something that's a little more robust. I think there's a few different content repositories out there. I think Conversica is one that is like a centralized content library that both your prospects can consume, but that is also visible to sales, so they're able to get really familiar with the content that you're sharing. Another is allowing sales to suspend people from marketing. I've done this with MSI before. It sounds kind of scary and like something you would never want sales to really be able to do, but trust me when I say that it's more of an olive branch that they now have this power, and I've used this in several different companies, and I've never run into sales excessively suspending people from marketing. The most important thing here is that you're setting a time limit on how long someone will be suspended. So the way that you set this up with MSI is to create a campaign, a smart campaign in Marketo that is triggered off of campaign is requested from Marketo Sales Insight, changes someone's marketing suspended value to true, waits X number of days, I usually do 7 days, and then changes it back to false automatically. That way, if sales is entering a demo with someone and they want to make sure that marketing's not sending them any promos, marketing's not confusing them with additional collateral, they're able to take ownership of the conversation at that point. You do give them that ability, but they can't accidentally suspend someone from marketing and leave them suspended forever, and you don't know why, and you can't unsuspend them, and sales forgets to unsuspend them. They're never going to remember to unsuspend people, so you shouldn't rely on them for that. That's one really nice way to do that, and I found that that has gone a long way for my sales teams to respect marketing and respect that there is a certain point that they can take ownership of a conversation. But I've never seen anyone abuse it. And then the other thing is to be courteous of timing and frequency. So if you're constantly overwhelming people with marketing messaging, then they definitely don't want to get additional messaging from sales. So this is a good time to look at your communication preferences and come up with an agreed upon communication preference for both your marketing activities out of Marketo and whatever email sales is sending. If sales is sending someone an email every single day, they're probably going to unsubscribe from your marketing emails too. So just make sure that those two teams are aligned on how frequently you're communicating with people. Make sure that both teams have visibility on when the last time someone was communicated with, and you're able to share that and be courteous of that for your prospects. Anything from the panel? Anything to add there?
I think one of the things that jumped out at me is kind of the collaboration between sales and marketing, and especially when you're at bottom of funnel leads, or you've got leads that have kind of hit a sales qualified status, to be able to kind of go through that process with them hand in hand in the sales team and kind of say, here are the marketing assets that might be able to help you to be able to move somebody out of bottom of funnel to an actual converted closed won sort of status. And I can just think anecdotally of several different times, probably the biggest one, selling safety inspection software that was going to be used in all target locations across the country, and at the end of the day dealing with a buyer objection, which is a little bit harder to be able to kind of glean from notes that you'd see inside of your typical CRM note, but it's something that a salesperson knows as you're kind of dealing with these late-stage contacts on a face-to-face basis. So, using something like Marketo Sales Insights to be able to kind of pick some of these marketing assets and say, the benefit to you as a salesperson of being able to actually use that asset with your late-stage prospect is that you're going to be able to see how they're engaging with that. In this case, we used a YouTube video to be able to show the ruggedness of this tablet product that we were selling. And actually be able to kind of close the deal by letting them kind of see, engage, and we could see how many influencers within that organization were actually looking at that video before they made a final purchase decision. So there's definitely an advantage for the sales team to be able to do it, but giving them sort of an empowered insight to be able to say, I like this marketing asset and I like this one, and these are the ones that I think I'm going to be able to use to be able to move out some of those late-stage prospects into sales.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is a collaboration for sure, and I think that collaboration has to come from the top down. I think there's a lot that can be done by a marketing manager being buddy with people on the sales floor, just kind of colloquially. But the most power is going to come from your VP of marketing and your VP of sales being on the same page with the metrics you're reporting on, the goals for the organization, and how you can get there. Anything else?
I actually had one more question.
Sure.
Whenever you're reporting on, for instance, SLAs, and if someone's in or out of policy, Sydney, do you think that it's better to run those reports out of Salesforce, or do you have a Marketo report that you run?
You can really do them either way. For all of my lifecycle processing stages, I create a date stamp field that syncs to Salesforce on the leading contact. I think that as much reporting as you can do out of Salesforce is better. I think Salesforce is inherently a little more trusted, particularly from sales organizations. As much as I do like Marketo reporting, most sales execs don't care a ton about Marketo reporting. So by using those date stamp stages, you can do leading contact or campaign member reporting to roll the leading contacts both and look at infractions based on the date stamps.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Okay, reporting is so timely for our next point. He's always bothering me about reports. I have definitely had at different organizations, salespeople come to my desk and ask me to download a CSV of how many people clicked a link on an email that was sent from marketing. That is 100% a waste of your time, 1,000% a waste of your time. No one should be doing that. But you should be empowering your sales team or your SDRs to look at that data themselves. And you can do that with Marketo Sales Insight. So first thing is to make it easy to see campaign engagement. This is super easy with Marketo Sales Insight, whether you're setting up an interesting moment or using Salesforce campaign membership if you're not using MSI, or just training your sales team on how to look at the email tab in MSI on the leads and contacts and see both what emails this person was sent and what emails they've clicked. There's a little checkbox that makes that very easy to see. And then they should never have to come to you and ask questions like, please send me a CSV of everyone that clicked a link in this email. Furthermore, they shouldn't care about who clicked a link in an email because that is not really indicative of strong engagement that they should follow up on. Which brings me to my next point. Send alerts for the really important stuff. If something important happens that you want sales to follow up on, don't make them go on a wild goose chase trying to find that information. MSI is there to support them and they're prepping a conversation or prepping a deck to have a conversation with a prospect and see what types of things they're interacting with, what categories of content are they engaging with, what can I do to kind of tailor this to what they've shown interest in. But if there's something that is very important that you want sales to follow up on, like filling out a contact us form, you should absolutely send an alert for something like that. And then bottom line is to communicate. Make sure that you and sales are on the same page, marketing and sales are on the same page about what's important, what you're reporting on, making sure that you're getting on the same funnel. I think we'll get to that a little bit later. But if you are, if sales is finding something like a clicks link in email to be really valuable and something they want to follow up on, you're not on the same page, and you should start communicating about, why that's not necessarily indicative of a high engagement and what they should be looking at instead. Anything from the panel to add there? Anyone use MSI or have any exciting experiences with MSI or even the new Marketo Sales Engage with Tout App?
MSI is always an interesting one because sales get really excited when they see it, when they actually realize they have this thing and they're like, oh, I didn't know I could. And then they start telling me that they're doing Marketo. It's like, oh, I'm using Marketo, I've sent an email, I've done it. And I'm like, yes, I think it kind of goes down to the training of what is MSI and what can you actually do with it, or what can you see with it. Like having the ability to add someone to a nurture campaign. One of the clients I've been working with, they wanted to add people, but they also want the salespeople to add people. I was like, well, just go into MSI, click the little drop down and add to campaign and pick the campaign. And it's because they just didn't know it did that, they thought all they could do with it was see if there'd been any engagement on the email or see if someone had been on the website. Having that, sometimes a bit more in-depth training, and you don't know what they need until they need it. Because, it's like you can tell anyone everything that a product or a tool does, and they forget it until they actually need to do a certain thing. So I think having kind of regular training, especially when updates come out, especially I haven't played with Sales Engage yet, and I'm really excited I'm trying to get one of my clients to get on it, because they want to do many more inside sales emails, and they were trying to send them from Marketo, and then trigger on if someone had hit the reply button. And I was like, no, that's not what Marketo is for. That's not what we do. But again, they're trying to. It's just explaining the different tools and what they can do, and keeping regular training happening. Because, like I said, they'll forget it, and salespeople come and go so quickly. It's great just doing. Yes, we're going to do a training session at the beginning of the year, but what about 3 months down the line, a month down the line?
Right, get a whole new Salesforce.
Yeah, I mean, and even when the updates come out, the fall updates or summer updates from Marketo, when all this stuff happens, we get excited about it because we're nerds, but whether sales gets excited about it, they will if they think it's going to benefit them.
Right.
And that's what it's all down to, is don't tell them what they don't need to know. Help with, don't need to look at opens and clicks. What you need to look at is your lead score or the engagement, or if they're a response in one of your important campaigns, not how many people have liked clicked or opened an email. And then when you explain why, they're like, oh, okay, so I don't need to just target someone as soon as they've clicked an email. Because you still see it a lot. I mean, I see it in one of the
I've
like,
seen it too.
Yeah, and we're getting people saying, well, our customers are complaining because we're ringing them after they've clicked a link. And we're like, yeah, we know. We this is what we're trying to avoid this, but sometimes it's what sales needs, and when they realise that they're going to get those complaints, then they start to maybe work a little bit more on the actual outcome of the campaign they want, and then where they can get those results, and then use those results for whatever sales engagement they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really like your point, Jules, about the amount of data, and it's how you present it really to the sales team that determines, what they're going to be able to use and what's important to them. And I having worked in the CRM side of things quite often from the sales perspective, really found that now as a marketer and as somebody who has a lot more control over the Salesforce instance, I tend to think of the pages that you see of a lead or a contact in terms of the same way that we think of like a landing page, where you think of, when you're looking at eye tracking, it normally goes the way of an F, right? When you think of the behavior of some of the people that are watching some of your landing pages. Well, that philosophy works the same way, that principle works the same way when you're looking at the contact sheet inside of a Salesforce instance, right? What fields are you going to put that are going to tell the salesperson exactly what's going on with the prospect that they're talking to in their CRM, and what's the most concise way to be able to do that? And I've been in some instances where, the client has used MSI strictly for email tracking, but they haven't spent a lot of time with the layout features within Salesforce instance to make sure that it's not just the sales leadership that has the chance to see that, it's also the sales team that gets a chance to understand some of the insights, not all of them, but just the really key crucial ones that give them a good benchmark as to what should I bring up in terms of my conversation with a specific lead to kind of move the sales conversation along to the next point. And that brevity combined with the richness of data is really the balancing point that you're only going to get if you really engage and include the salespeople as part of that conversation. And I think that that's a huge piece of the Marketo Sales Insights package that doesn't necessarily get used as often as it should or could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jules, you actually mentioned something that reminded me of another good use case I've had for MSI in the past. If you have an SDR team that's more dedicated to marketing and is doing something like calling people and asking them to register for a webinar, or calling people and letting them know that your company is going to be at a trade show and you're having a happy hour and inviting them to the happy hour. I think oftentimes what I've seen is either a link to a registration page being sent to the client themselves and asking them to fill it out, which is a good opportunity for them to drop off and forget to fill it out and then forget that they wanted to go and it's sold out or whatever. Or what is worse is having the sales team fill out the landing page form themselves, which, as we know, they're filling out the landing page form as one of their clients. Their web activity is now going to start being tracked as that client. And if they, didn't clear the cookies or do it in incognito and then are doing something later on, like looking at different assets on the website, if you have any kind of web activity scoring going on, those are definitely being logged. They, may end up being an MQL based on the activity that this person is taking. So I think it's better if you're having something like a call down campaign for a marketing initiative to make that campaign visible in Sales Insight, have the person on the phone and say, hey, we're having this happy hour at the trade show. Are you interested in coming? Yes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and register. You should get a confirmation email in just a few minutes. Anything else about MSI?
One thing that's maybe a smaller piece of it, but I was just curious, has anyone seen success with the the stars and flames within MSI and sales really utilizing that?
I had a sales team that used that quite a bit. So there's, I think what we're most familiar with MSI is the iframe that shows up on leads and contacts and accounts where you can see individual activity records. And there are those stars and flames that I think mostly get ignored. But the stars and flames relate to your lead scoring. If that's not something you've used before, you can set it up in admin and Marketo, make sure it's aligning to the right score fields that you want to follow. The stars are how high someone's lead score is relative to everyone else in the database. So if they're in the top, 30% of lead scorers, or if they're in the middle or the bottom. And then the flames are the urgency, which is how quickly their lead score changed. So someone who has 25 points, but they got all 25 points in the last 2 days would be higher up than someone who has 25 points, but accrued those 25 points over several years. There's another part of MSI that is a Marketo tab in Salesforce, and that has a view that's called Best Bets, and it sorts people by the stars and flames behavior. So it's sorting it both by lead score and by urgency. And I have had sales teams that use that as like a call down list for marketing. That was a kind of a different organization where they were calling pretty much everyone anyway. We had some MQLs, but they were calling people even if they were not yet an MQL. So that gave them the ability to at least call people who were highly engaged and not just cold calling someone who was truly a cold lead. Anyone else used the stars and flames before?
Everyone I've spoke to doesn't like it, but I love your explanations of it. And I've never been able to explain it in that way that makes sense to them. So I'm going to steal that explanation.
Because I think the stars and flames do definitely get knocked down a little bit, but they can be helpful. I have found that they can be a little unreliable sometimes. Someone will have 3 flames and you're not really sure why, but I think in general they can be helpful. And that Best Bets tab is nice. Oh,
yeah, Best Bets is always good, but sometimes I think the salespeople are like, I must ring these people straight away because they've seen them on this Best Bets. But explaining the flames and the stars in the way that you just did, I said I'm stealing that, because I think having spoken to anyone who's used it, trying to explain how it works, I've never been able to do it correctly, which might be because people don't always use it, but I'm always like, just look at lead scoring, we have that, look at their activity, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot too. Actually, I'm going to steal that as well too, because I really like that as well too, and struggle to define that. I think what I don't think I've really gotten as much feedback from clients usually from the trenches, which is really where you want to hear about this sort of thing. Is it's okay if the management team can see it from the sales leadership side of things, but I'm more interested in what are the guys in the front line actually seeing and making use out of that. And the few times that I've seen where it's been a little bit unpredictable and unreliable has usually been a scoring issue, and the times that I've seen it has usually been because they're making score decay campaigns inside of their scoring program, and so they're there. They've usually done the import as part of the Marketo program template, and those are the pieces that haven't been activated. And I think that going back to that scoring worksheet PDF that Marketo provides, and kind of saying, it's important to score about what behavior you're trying to encourage, but then also to have some negative scoring to be able to say, okay, these are the times when we need to kind of knock some of these leads down a peg to be able to kind of move people along and determine who's top of funnel, who's mid funnel, who's bottom of funnel in your sales process specifically. So there's some underlying metrics behind that.
It's funny, Sydney. I've actually had clients before that were 100% would rely on the stars and flames, and they loved it, and I have others that had no idea what it was, or clients that didn't want to use it because, like what you said, sometimes it can be unreliable.
A lot of people in Canada thought they were just hockey teams.
That's funny. All right, cool. Anything else about MSI? Move on. All right, this I think is probably the biggest systemic problem with sales and marketing alignment. Leadership only cares about what sales thinks, not marketing. It can certainly feel like that sometimes. If you're particularly in a sales-driven organization, sales is king, sales is always right. Marketing has to bend over backwards to accommodate everything that sales wants. It can definitely feel like that sometimes. But there are some things you can do to help with that and get marketing a seat at the table so you're not marketing subservient to sales, but marketing also making an impact on the business and showing real value. So first things first, this is I think in most organizations that I've worked with that have had a real problem with marketing and sales alignment, they're not reporting on the same funnel. If sales has their own sort of sales funnel, but it's pretty isolated from what marketing is doing, and marketing may have, a revenue modeler in Marketo or something, but it's not something that sales is aware of or knows any of the stage names of, or sales leadership really cares anything about, then that is a huge disconnect between the values of sales and marketing and what is someone showing value to the organization. So get on the same funnel. If that means, doing an overhaul of your lifecycle processing, I think this is a great reason for it and a great opportunity for it. And make sure that you have some sales leadership in the room when you're making some of those definitions and making some of those decisions. It's great when sales and marketing can be looking at the same reports, the same dashboards. Marketing is obviously a little more focused on top to mid funnel pre-sales handoff, but marketing should also care about what happens after they hand off those leads to sales. Are they being worked? Are they being recycled? Are they quality leads or are they not? And that's, taking an interest in what is important to sales, which is making sales. That goes beyond just what is important to marketing, which can often just be generating MQLs, no matter how crappy they are. So get on the same funnel, very, very important. The other one is to show marketing's impact on actual opportunities. So even if your marketing organization is still really being held to just MQLs, and maybe from a goals perspective or bonus structure perspective, you don't care that much about how many opportunities marketing generates, that's how marketing shows impact on the business, is actual closed won dollars and cents. So if you don't have a reporting tool that's able to give you that kind of information right now, Marketo's RCE certainly can get you there with some multi-touch attribution reporting. Visible, I think, is a great way to start doing that. There are lots of third-party reporting tools that you can use to start showing, at a pretty granular level, how much money did this initiative that marketing worked on generate for the business. And when you can start comparing that to marketing's expense, it'll prove that marketing is not just a cost center, but something that's really making meaningful contribution to the business and the bottom line. And then ask for their reporting needs. If you are just spitting reports at your executive team and you feel like they're not looking at them, they're probably not. They probably have their own reporting that they're pulling, and it may be totally disconnected from what you're doing. And that is a surefire way for marketing to not feel really valuable to the business and not get any investment. So ask what your executives are reporting on, ask what the board is reporting on, and start aligning your reporting to that. And where you can, make sure that you start showing the reporting that is valuable to them, and get them bought in on it so you can start sharing that together. What do we have from the panel? Any exciting executive reporting tales?
I would say, the comments you were making around getting on the same funnel, agreement on the lead stage definitions, the sales process, that's not just critical from a reporting standpoint, but that's crucial so that the leads are flowing through your stages properly, because there's always going to be a process that sales needs to follow, a certain status they need to update, associate contact roles with the opportunity. If they're not doing those things, and if the sales management isn't enforcing those things, then your funnel that you built in Marketo isn't going to work very well. There's going to be leads that fall through the cracks.
Certainly, and I think that all depends on how you're having that conversation with sales. You certainly will have a conversation either with sales or with more likely sales ops to understand what the sales process is and align your proxies in Marketo to follow that. But if they're still not aware of, what the reason is or what result is coming from that, or if they think that it's something that they're just doing to appease marketing, they're first of all not going to care very much about it and not do it very reliably. But your funnel reporting is still not going to be valuable if it's not something that they've agreed is, a worthwhile stage definition that we should be reporting on.
Yeah, you'll definitely need to be strategic in how you frame that conversation and make it be collaborative and not just something
right.
you're dictating.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a funnel for our business, not a marketing funnel, not a sales funnel. This is reporting on our entire buyer's journey.
Yeah, I think that a big piece of that is just making sure that with your connection between your CRM and your automation system, that you're getting opportunity data that's coming back in, as well as the lead and the contact information. And I think a lot of people from the sales side of things kind of look at the Salesforce opportunity influence analyzers and the reports there. But then I think that understanding that type of report also exists in Marketo. And one of the key pieces I think that's important to kind of look at too is to make sure that your channel tags and your success metrics on your Marketo programs are properly identified and aligned, and especially now with things like Marketo Performance Insights coming into play, where that helps you to be able to sort of streamline the reporting that you have available, as long as you make sure that you're properly tagging program status. I think that helps to add more reporting, and better and more importantly, it kind of closes the loop on reporting to be able to see exactly what your ROI is on some of the marketing activities that you're spending time doing.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I like that you mentioned, I think you mentioned the Opportunity Influence Analyzer in Salesforce. I feel like that's kind of an underutilized report in Marketo. It is, a little annoying because it has to go opportunity by opportunity, but when you have an executive team or, even marketing leadership that has a hard time conceptualizing multi-touch attribution, I think we often get the question, where do these MQLs come from? Like, what campaign drove this MQL? And it's never an answer as simple as that. You can certainly tell them what the last campaign they engaged with was before they became an MQL, but more likely it's been, at least several months of engagement across all types of different content before this lead was exposed to enough collateral to be ready for a sales conversation. So I like to think of the Opportunity Influence Analyzer as your gateway drug to multi-touch attribution. If you can, ask for one of the big opportunities that sales had this year and then put it in the Opportunity Influence Analyzer and show in a line chart over time all of the touches that marketing had with this lead before they ultimately became this, really valuable opportunity for the business. That's a great way to start, just edging in and showing what marketing's value is. And then when you do some of this more high-level reporting, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, what I really like about that too, that point that you're mentioning there is that from a sales perspective, really, as you're getting to the close, where you're asking for the close, especially in some of the bigger deals, that Opportunity Influence Analyzer report really tells you what the original impetus was to be able to look at whatever product or service that you're trying to sell through Marketo or Salesforce. And I've been in sales conversations where a customer waffled on being able to actually make that final purchase decision, and maybe you've got a 6 or 8 month sales cycle that's out there where they start to not identify with the actual pain points that drove them to look at your product or service initially. And so those reports are really telling to be able to kind of say, okay, this was the initial land, this was the first touch that actually made this person raise their hand and say, I'm interested in what you're selling, and so that drives your next move to be able to close that deal, to say, maybe we need to go back to the actual initial pain point and put together a piece of marketing collateral to put in front of that person to finally close the deal. So it can really make the difference in some pretty big sales numbers too for your team to be able to hit that closing point. That's always one of the hardest points to be able to close when you're in a sales conversation.
Spoken like a real sales guy, Michael.
Long time ago in a galaxy far away.
No, I think that's a great point. Anything else? All right, I think that's our last burn book item. So if you do all of these things, you will not be like a regular marketer. You will be a cool marketer. And sales will always find something to complain about because the limit does not exist. But don't let the haters stop you from doing your thing. That's it. That's all my Mean Girls gifts for today.
Awesome.
Love it. Thank you, Sydney. Does anyone have any questions for Sydney before we transition over to just any and everything Marketo related for our panelists?
Hi, this is Nick. I've got a quick question going back to MSI. Have any of you noticed, having to train sales to switch from Lightning to Classic? So if they have a Lightning instance, because I've noticed you haven't been able to bulk send to multiple leads through Lightning, as well as bulk add multiple leads to campaigns or programs. So I was just wondering how you've tackled that issue if it's come up.
I haven't had the Lightning issue specifically, switching back and forth between MSI, but I also generally, and this is maybe, Marketo blasphemy or something, but I generally don't encourage the bulk operations from MSI. I don't love bulk sending by sales through MSI or bulk processing someone through a campaign. I think that we should still try to keep that as one-to-one as possible. So because of both of those things, I haven't really run into the Lightning issue yet, but that's good to know that you can't do bulk processing in Salesforce Lightning. I wonder if that's something they're going to fix, or if it's just a switch to Marketo Sales Engage and it'll be better.
Yeah, from what I was reading, they said they don't have any intention to make updates to MSI since they've rolled out Engage.
Yeah, I think Sales Engage, there's a lot of frustrating things about MSI that Sales Engage kind of resolves. So eventually everyone will be transitioned onto that. And if you're using MSI as a sales tool now, I would strongly encourage you or your client to look at Sales Engage. The functionality that you get from Tout App is, light years beyond what you have in normal MSI, and I think it solves a lot of those problems.
Okay, thanks.
I got a question in the chat from Allie, and getting sales to fill out primary contact and role in order for big opportunities to show up in the op analyzer. You can actually, so there's a couple things you can do. One is you can berate sales without filling out primary contact and role. Just kidding, berating never works. You do need to make them understand why it's valuable, or they won't do it. The other thing you can do is change your settings in Marketo, and this is depending on what kind of reporting you're doing in Marketo. This may be a little bit riskier, but there's a setting for RCE and admin where you can check it to look at multi-touch reporting for not just people that have a contact role on the op, but also all persons on the account. Or you can do a hybrid approach where if they've actually gone to the trouble to make a contact role on the opportunity, then look at that. But if they haven't, then look at all persons on the account. For the opportunity analyzer specifically, you can just check off more people. And I know it is helpful to know what the contact role on the opportunity is. But oftentimes, depending on what your line of business is, I found that a lot of the really valuable engagements happen in the people that don't end up becoming a contact role on the opportunity. If you're doing a lot of marketing to someone who would be considered a lower level person at the business, but not really a contract signer or a decision maker, but they're bubbling that up to their boss, I have found that those engagements are valuable to look at, and you can just check those off in the analyzer to see all of them. Anyone else from the panel have any issues on, or any woes to share on sales refusing to select contact roles on an opportunity?
I try and make it really obvious to them that if they don't do that, suddenly we lose all tracking. So if we want to see how successful any of their campaigns that they've decided to run are, we have to see who is involved in the opportunity. And if we can't see who's involved in the opportunity, we can't see where these people have come from. And I say to them, if you want me to run a campaign for you, I then need to see how successful that campaign was. There's no point you just telling me to run campaigns when we can't track the success, because the success isn't how many people clicked or how many people registered. The success is how much revenue we've generated from the campaign. So having those contact roles attached to opportunities is a huge thing. I've even had clients who didn't really open opportunities properly. They'd kind of open an opportunity and then leave it, just so they could see that one was open. Nothing was attached. It was never closed. It never went through the process of the different progress stages. And I just sat with them and said, if you actually work with these opportunities, you can actually really see what your funnel is actually going to look like. You can see where the money's coming from. It's going to help with your compensation at the end of the day. So, and if you just do that one extra step of just adding on the contact role to see who is related to that opportunity, we can then help guide you on where you should be spending your money for any campaigns that you want to do. And I always put the onus on them as if you want help with where do you want to put your money, or where do you want to build a campaign, or do you think this dinner is more successful than this webinar, we can only tell you that if you put the contact role on the opportunity, because then we can start tracking the success. That's how I've done it. It's all up to them.
Yeah, Jules, we've actually done the same with a lot of our clients. Is we do require a contact role just for the exact reason that you just said. We tell them tracking's not enabled, and we get better reporting from it. So long term, I think it's a great option.
Yeah, and I think once you actually show them, like either using Marketo with the opportunity analyzer, or you can show them in the opportunity. You can say, actually, if you add this contact role, suddenly all these campaigns appear that are related to that opportunity as well. And they're like, oh, so I can see that this person was in these 3 different campaigns. They're also part of this opportunity, so maybe I need to do more of these types of campaigns to get more people to open opportunities. And it just kind of, it clicks with them if you can just show them how everything links together. Because as with everything, sales and marketing, they always think they're 2 completely different things. Once you start building that alignment and say, actually, we're trying to help you make more money, we're trying to help you get your comp up, we're trying to help you be more successful. We're not compensated for closing sales and closing deals, but we're trying to help you do that. So this is the information you can see in Salesforce. You don't need to go anywhere else. You can see this information. You can see what is and isn't working. And I think that really tends to drive them for switching. It is that culture switch, switching that culture of, okay, now I need to do this one extra thing, and suddenly I'm going to get all of this new information.
I think it's kind of funny when you think about this presentation. If we did it from a sales perspective, they'd probably do it on Jerry Maguire instead of show me the money. And so I think, you know, one of the things that you sort of struggle with is you know, again, speaking from a sales perspective, is you want to be on the phone and selling, right, and not worrying as much about the data inside of your system, right, is sort of in the back of your head, is I have to close this many deals by this period of time to hit my quota. And so just kind of flipping on it on the other side of things is, what can we do as data-driven marketers to be able to help populate the fields that are needed for the sales organization to be able to function so that they can focus on this specific piece? So is that putting in data enrichment like Clearbit and Ringlead and things like that to be able to help remove some of the time that they need for those tasks so that they can focus on, these are the important pieces that we can really only get in the data from your personal engagements and interactions with some of these prospects. And it's you know, a little less harder to be able to pull that out with a flow step per se, and it's much more something where you do need a manual process in that period of time. So if we can bring something to the table like that, and I think the other side of it too is from a sales governance perspective. You know, being able to kind of refine with your sales leadership, you know, these are some tools that we can bring to the table from a marketing perspective to be able to help make your job easier, to be able to populate whatever fields that you need for your sales reporting, for your sales governance. So that, and in turn, you know, this is what we need from your organization to provide back to us for very much the opportunity influence reporting that we're talking about here. So I do think that's a good way to collaborate, and that's kind of a good starting point to be able to open up some really meaningful conversations across the organization at all levels.
Any other questions from our attendees? All right. Well, in that case, I am going to stop the recording and kind of open this up for a general discussion. And again, this recording will be posted in the community